Howdy YouTube, and welcome to another episode of the Gunman Raw. So today we're going to do a little bit of masking and the base coat stage on the bonnet and boot lid off my friend Nick's VF Commodore. The color it's going is 636R, which is Switchblade silver. And yeah, let's do it. Let's get into it, guys. So starting off by doing the masking, obviously the bonnet's already been primed, right? So there was sort of small dents all over this bonnet, and well, it was covered in stone chips too. Boot lid, not so bad. However, there was a repair on the boot lid. So the owner of this car is a friend of mine called Nick, right? From here in Melbourne. He, in his infinite wisdom, decided to reverse into one of his neighbor's cars. So yes, and here we are. So the car, the repair was only, it was gonna be kind of like the back half of the car, everything except for the front and the roof. And he decided, man, we're kind of halfway to a respray, we may as well just respray it while we're there. So here we are. We just decided to, yeah, do the rest of the car. What else? That's it. We're doing a respray. But yeah, so the bonnet, because I repaired it and blocked it down, I didn't even cut through it at all. Killer prep work, Gunny, if I don't say so myself. Boot lid had like a repair through here and around here type thing. So I blocked that down. There was a few little imperfections, chips on the edges, stone chips that I had to fill in. So I did decide to wet on wet prime that. That was actually primed at the other shop. So my boss probably has about five shops on, and maybe even 15 if you count all the other businesses that he's got. He's one of those genius type guys. One thing about my boss is that it just baffles me, man. Like the knowledge that he has about every part of his business, right? So, you know, this is the way I look at it. It takes me like 20 years to have like a in-depth understanding of, you know, even just the paint, right? I'm not saying I'm that smart, I'm not that dumb, but you know, it takes me a while to sort of learn things. He'll come in here, man, and I swear he'll know all the tinters, he'll know the numbers of the primers, right? And that's just like one part of one of his businesses. This is my point, right? So he's got law firms, he's got like a truck repairer, he's got like a gym, all these other different businesses, and I can guarantee you that his truck repairer, he would know all the mechanical stuff, right? He would know all that stuff, like all the ins and the outs of all of his businesses, like genius type, you know, genius type level. Anyway, enough pissing in my boss's pocket. But no, he's actually a really good dude too. You could say about him sort of hard but fair, not the kind of person to be walked over. But if you do the right thing by him, man, he will bend over backwards for you to look after you. Well, that's been my experience anyway. And I noticed that, yeah, like even with the other employees, he looks after the ones that look after him. Like even today, so I woke up at like, I think it was like 4:10. I was in at work by 5. I pretended like I was gonna try and get back to sleep, but you know, sometimes you just gotta give up and say, man, that's not gonna happen. I'm not going back to sleep today. And then I started just coming in early and then leaving still at the normal time. And I spoke to my boss and he's like, man, just make the hours up, right? So if you come in and do 2 hours overtime in the morning, you can leave a couple of hours early. So that's what I've been doing. Yeah, like I said, today I was in here at work at 5:30. What is it? It's not even 7 o'clock yet. I've already got these parts in the booth, mixed the color up. So with the wet on wet primer, that's one thing that I've been doing is giving it a bit of a bake. So I put it down, right? I like to put my wet on wet primer down when it's not too hot, because you can get what they call sand piling. You don't want it drying as you're applying on the part of the panel that you have not painted yet, right? So yeah, sort of 20 to 23 degrees when you're applying the wet on wet primer. But then as soon as I get it down, I'll give it 5 minutes at 30 degrees, right? Sort of, that's the maximum booth temperature you can get on spray cycle in this booth anyway. So I'll give it sort of 3 to 5 minutes on at 30 degrees, and then just give it a 4-minute bake at 70. So not a long bake, but a short sort of high bake. Bang it up to temperature, get it back down, and sort of dry that primer before you go and put your color down. And that way, I've noticed that you definitely get a lot less sort of shrink back. One thing that, yeah, over the years has sort of annoyed me with the wet on wet primers, whenever you put it down, well, if you don't bake it, then you will get that sort of dieback. That's why I avoided using it for a long time, because of that, because I guess I was always a little bit wary of baking primer that you might sort of, obviously you've got a recoat window, right? If I left that for like 3 days and I put base coat over, it's not going to stick, right? So you do have that the recoat window. I was sort of a little bit concerned that maybe a bit of a bake would go outside that window, but yeah, basically a guy on Instagram, he just said, yeah, he gives it a 20-minute bake. Now I personally wouldn't go 20 minutes, but yeah, this one here, I think I just did it for 4 minutes. In the past I've done 5 minutes, and it seems to work. Yeah, I had a good question. Of one person said, oh, what do you trust more, mechanical or chemical adhesion? And like, I thought about it, and well, the answer has to be both, right? Like, you have to trust your chemical adhesion. You haven't got any choice. If you're gonna do clear over base, like, that's obviously not a mechanical adhesion. But like, to answer the question, I would always trust mechanical adhesion. Like, you physically sanded that panel, you know that whatever goes on top of it's gonna stick, right? And I say that because, you know, sometimes clear coat does flake off base coat, but I think a lot of the times that will happen is, say, base coat not dry correctly, wrong or cheap clears maybe. But even then, probably pretty rare, even using, say, a cheap clear. So because this is a respray, I just mix up the standard variant, the prime variant, and then just mix and paint. I'm not going to do any colour matching or painting the whole car. That way in the future, if it ever comes back, I know I'll keep a spray out card, but I'll know come straight back to that standard variant. Nice and clean, nice tack rag. Prep work should be on point because Gunny did it. But it'll be a good test. I have no doubt in my skills. But even if something does come up, we'll know what to do. The owner of this car, he said, oh, do you want to like give a F-U-C-K? Do you want to give a shit, so to speak, when you're painting it? And I'm like, man, I sort of, I'm somewhat of a robot. Like, I'm a bit on autopilot when I do my paint and prep work. It's just, I don't actually have to think about it, if that makes sense. So yeah, the program is give a shit always, but the execution, it's, yeah, the programming's done, you know. I don't necessarily have to think about what I'm doing. I just sort of do it. So you're gonna use PPG and Envirobase, but on this one, I'm just gonna do the standard 3-coat system, not the 1 visit. I was sort of tossing up between the two, but you know, well, the owner actually did request using the 3-coat system. If it was my car, I probably would use the 1 visit, but here we are. Full fan. Yeah, so we'll give that a few minutes. So this is just a standard 3 coat, as I said before. What I like to do, first coat nice and wet to sort of, we're just trying to get most of the coverage there. And as you can see, the shade of primer is spot on. It looks pretty much covered after 1 coat, right? Now that is closer to wet. It's not, I guess you'd say it's a wet coat, right? You wouldn't say ultra crazy, stupid wet, just a wet coat. And then what I do, second coat, I'll back it off a little bit. Third coat, back it off even a little bit more. But as far as coverage goes, we are on point. I've got the booth set up to 30 degrees. And what I'm gonna do between base coat and clear coat, again, I'm gonna give it a 5-minute bake. One thing I think I've started noticing with that one visit, I've had a few issues with the one visit, and they're just teething issues. I'm not sort of giving the product a hard time. I'm just sort of figuring things out with it, right? But what I think I've done is baked it too early, too hot too early. So at the very start, I was sort of chilling with the bake and sort of going at maybe even just 40 degrees, right? But then I started, you know, pushing it to its limits. That's what I always do with products. I like to sort of push it to its limits and above, so you can pull it back to, you know, just under the limit. But what I think I'd done is hit it too heavy, maybe too high of a bake too early, and I was getting water boil, I guess you would say, because it's not solvent, it's waterborne paint. But I think it was bubbling up, and then when you would go, you couldn't notice it, like it would look fine until you got your clear on, and there'd be like little pinholes, and then you'd have to sort of pound that clear on just to sort of fill the pinholes up. And again, I think that was, yeah, just too much heat too early. I'm sort of killing a bit of time here talking because I want to get this job extra nice and clean for Nick, and I've found that when you blow air onto the panels, you pretty much always going to blow something into it, even if it's only a couple of little bits of dust. For the sake of an extra couple of minutes, just let it do its thing, and we'll put the next coat on when it's ready. But you can see it's drying nice and fast, you know, sort of these edges start drying first. What I can do while I'm waiting is print out a label and get that color card ready. Just hit 7 o'clock in the morning. I've already done my weights for the day. Tricep extensions, 3 sets of 20. Loves it, baby. Looking like it's kind of drying down nice too, like fully covered, no sanding scratches even after the first coat, which is a very good sign. I finished it off with 800 grit. So I did all the repairs, right, with the UV filler, filled up all the stone chips, and then I put 3 nice thick coats of primer, G5 shade, which is the shade that you saw before. And then I hit it with 240 after the prime, but I hit just the repairs with 240. And then hit the entire bonnet with 320, then did the edges by 500 on one of those softback sanding sponges. So yep, 500 edges, and then 500 on the faces again with the orbital, and then 800 on the edges, and then 800 with the orbital, and then just tickled up a couple of the little spots by hand. And it's looking on point, man, really good. I'm happy with it. Alright, so that's basically covered. We'll probably give that an extra 2 coats. And like I said, we'll print out that label now. It's up on the screen, so I may as well. I love this one. I was cleaning out my garage a couple of weeks ago and I found this. I've had it for years, but as you can see here, it's a little, sort of like a Teledex type thing, but using it for the colors, little color library type thing. I've got them in color categories, so you know, you got a dark gray or a silver, bang it in there, dark colors, solid whites, pearl whites, red, matte and custom. So yeah, pretty cool to have. That one can go back. Peugeot, that would go into dark colors. Even got this, man, this thing, I've had this since, I reckon it would have been about 2016. Shout out to Spray Guns Direct. Let's have a look at this quickly. That's just about ready. I'll come back out and I'll show you. You can repack the, what is it, the batteries in them, and I've had to. But what you do is you order, I think it's a 9.7 volt battery pack from eBay for like $20 or $30. You have to do like a little bit of doctoring to it, but yeah, awesome. Okay, looking good. Looking clean, man, looking really clean. I wound that fluid in just by a quarter of a turn. Not half a turn this time, just a quarter. It just felt right. So that coat should dry faster. You might not even be able to hear me. I can barely hear myself. Take this little mask off. Yeah, that coat should dry faster because I didn't put it on quite as wet. But yeah, that should be full covered. My rule of thumb is get it covered, then put another coat on. But we also have to think about the mottle and getting it nice and even. Let's do a quick top up here. I'll give you a look at that matching light. So it did require a little bit of modification to get it to fit properly, but it was pretty easy. The first time I repacked the battery, I sort of made it myself because I noticed that what was in there was, they're just AA batteries, right? So I got like a couple of packs of AA batteries from Bunnings and I sort of soldered them together. It was a bit rough, but it just worked. It didn't work perfectly because sometimes they wouldn't sort of quite contact, so you'd have to like push it into the right spot, but it got me through for a few years. But as you can see here, I've repacked a 9.7 volt. Hopefully that's, yeah, it's still working. you can see what I've had to do is like pack things in there to sort of push it up so that it hits the terminals up there. But what these come as, like they come as, yeah, 9.7 volt, I'm pretty sure it is. They come as like a flat battery pack. So you have to like slice it in half and fold it in half to sort of fit in there. And then like you've got to connect a couple of the terminals to make it so that it continues the circuit. But definitely doable, not massively difficult, I would say, for most people. And yeah, awesome that you can sort of repack these batteries, man. Because it's LEDs, this thing will last like a lifetime. Unlike the old 3M sun guns, which, because they were like an incandescent bulb in them. And I also had a fan, so it would just churn through the batteries. This thing here, man, you get 2 months out of it, you know? And look, a lot of the time we do full resprays here anyway. Yeah, we're still running. I've had that happen before where the camera's turned off because it's either overheated or whatever. And then I'm like, okay, I've just been sitting there talking to myself. That's weird. But yeah, how good's that? Color matching light, 3 settings on it, 2 different colors. I think that they reckon that's to check for metamerism or metamerism, whatever you call that, where the colors will change in different lights. But we're pretty much at the point where we got to get this last coat of Basecoat down, or it's never going to happen. I've decided what I'm going to use is the 131 clear coat on this, which is my favorite PPG clear. It's a relatively new clear. It goes down nice and slick and smooth. I swear, man, they've just copied Standox and I'm here for it. Like, I don't mind that. Copy the good shit, you know, it doesn't bother me at all. I just noticed there's a bit of a nib there. It sort of catches the eye being in silver, so I think we'll try and get rid of that one. And the gun I'm going to use a Supernova. I was tempted to sell this because we've just bought a new house and, you know, we're going to need all the money that we can get. But then I thought I'll use it one more time just before I sell it. And I'm like, man, I can't sell that. It's too good of a gun. Yeah. That boot lid looks about ready, but there's a few sections on that bonnet which is still not quite dry. Hey, there you go, that just wiped out. I didn't actually have to sand it, which is good. Turn that pressure down just a touch and come in an extra quarter of a turn. Yeah, that bonnet's not quite ready. You can see a few sort of wet spots. See, I don't mind giving it a very low bit of air pressure, but I don't want to sit there with the big air line and that's when you're really gonna blast shit into it. But just a sort of, that's all it needs, just a light blow, and it's pretty much gonna finish it off. What we might even do is just a bit of a crosshatch. Like, I probably don't need to. Yeah, actually, looking at how even it's gone on, I don't need to actually. I'm just gonna continue normal. Holding the gun back a bit. Man, that's really good. yeah, usually when you go into a job, you sort of got a mental picture what it's gonna look like. That's pretty much what I expected, but it's really good, if not a little bit better. Like there's not one nib in it, right? Which is important being a silver, because if you see a nib in your base coat, you're always gonna see it after you clear. Not so much always on the darker colors, but you can clear over it, sand it out in the clear, and you won't see it because it's so dark. But yeah, the silver's not very forgiving with the base coat, and that looks killer. Like you can see it's a bit uneven, but that will dry out as it has on the boot lid. So yeah, you may have noticed that so that was on the first coat of base coat, it was full. Second was quarter turn in, third was half turn in, right? So a quarter and then another quarter. But first coat was 20 psi, second coat was 20 psi, and I just dropped it down just a touch to maybe set a 18 type thing for the drop coat. And then you may have also noticed that I held the gun back a little bit. But what I will do, like that's of course not dry yet, but we are sort of running out of time on this video, or it splits up into 2 videos, and then yeah, it's not a raw video if I have to do editing on it. So I'll give you guys a look at what it looks like prior to clear in the next video, so keep an eye out for that. Until next time, get out there and paint some shit. Gunman out.